today.
Yeah, it was today.
No one got killed, I hope.
No.
Got a plan.
1 minute warning before we are live. 1 minute warning.
Where's the agenda? When are you gonna ask for the motion?
Well, let them make their presentation and then,
Next steps will be that.
I was in Dick's Sporting Goods yesterday, though, and I was getting a gift card, but I sought out the manager there because I just still don't understand that project that's interrupted that part of it. And she said, well, let me just tell
So if you wanna wait till when it's done,
yeah, right, yeah.
She goes, it may not be here, but we're not leaving Huntersville. We might corporate came to this location. She said, not Cornelius, not Davidson, they said, and Mooresville's the only other one that way, and Concord Mills. So they said they'll either be there, or they'll be across the street at the new part of it, just broken down, or they'll build standalone. Whatever property they can find in,
start with that.
that's at 25. But they're gonna be there, she said, so just, she goes, we're the smallest store.
We're live on the internet.
So the meeting's called to order. Thank you. Jack, will you call the roll, please?
Be happy to. Nate Bowman? Here. Gatewood Campbell? Here. Doug Ferguson?
Here.
Sean Flynn?
Here.
John Foster?
Here.
Barbara Gethart? Charles Gignard?
Here.
Lee Holman?
Here.
Janelle Harris?
Here.
Elaine Kearns? Here. Bob Lemon?
Here.
Sarah McCauley?
Here.
Elizabeth Rodriguez? Cindy Trevathan?
Here.
Jessica Tucker?
Here.
Okay, for the non-voting ex officio members, April Dunn, Kathy Jones, John McClellan, Diane McLean, John O'Neill, Mike Russell, Stephen Swanek. Thank you, that's it, thank you.
Thank you. And, do we have any elected officials with us tonight? I believe so. Okay, thank you. The next item is 3, approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries. Next item is approve the December 1 meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for December 1 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next item are chairman's comment. I appreciate everybody's being here, as the faithful attendees and others. And we're ready to move forward with our meeting, and hopefully we come out with a plan tonight, a final plan to vote on tonight. We will have but we will go through the item. We will go through the presentations. With general public in just a minute. The presentation 7 and 8. Then we. So, anyone signed up to speak? No. Thank you. Then we're at item number 6. Well, we just had that presentation of the draft plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members. It's an honor to be in front of you tonight to give you an update here since our last meeting a couple of weeks ago. Since then, we collated a lot of the comments that were shared with us during that evening's meetings, as well as comments we received via email through Jack as well. So we've had the opportunity to integrate those into the final master plan. And just wanted to clarify what some of those elements were, those key revision items. Number one, and you should have received an email with these plans, the latest plans, that also includes the conceptual vision plan, as well as the draft or the final outline of recommendations. So those key revisions since the last time we were together, number one was the future town hall access drive. And as we discussed, we're sort of learning real time some of the decisions that are being made with your town board and the design of the town hall. And one of the key decisions was perhaps shift the building to the south about 30 feet or so to provide an access drive into that parking lot and future parking structure if the case unfolds in that manner. So we wanted to certainly include that because we think that is an important connection to that block. So that is now on the plan. The east-west connector street, there was a lot of discussion during the last meeting as well as some of the comments we received. A lot of great comments in terms of how we think about the segmentation of that as it might unfold in the future. And again, as we discussed, it's not a driver of the plan, but it's something that the plan should consider as certain blocks and quadrants evolve over time. But the key updates or refinements we made was we designated that segment A between Old Statesville Road and Main Street as A because we think that should be an independent street regardless of the east-west connector as it might extend to the west in the future. So as we discussed, we're trying to really enhance connectivity there in your downtown core between Old Statesville and Main Street, to provide more on-street parking, to provide more mobility options. And so that, in our minds, should function as an independent street. Now, we're not saying that there's a connection across Norfolk Southern. That's something that certainly would happen a long time in the future, requires obviously further discussions and future planning, but that segment A was unique in that regard. Segment B, that was the next segment that was contingent upon collaboration with CMS and their future planning of their new elementary school, a conveyance of land for that right-of-way, as well as a right of first refusal for the properties along Gilead Road. So that would be contingent for anything to happen on that segment between Commerce Center Drive and Sherwood Drive. The next segment, the final segment, would be C, and that is the connection between Sherwood and Old Statesville Road. And that would be contingent on B, as well as contingent upon a railroad crossing assumed to be underneath the corridor of Norfolk Southern. So it would be A, B, fully complete and funded, and then C, planned in accordance with respect to Holbert Park. Again, we require a lot of planning, collaboration with town, Parks and Rec, and just all the other variables involved with that. So we wanted to make that clear in terms of our thinking for the east-west connector street. Number three, the intersection of Hillcrest Road and Gilead Road. And there was some disparity in some of the plans, and I apologize for that. Again, this is very fluid. Things are happening real time in terms of where that traffic signal was proposed. We have it proposed there at that intersection of Hillcrest. And the reason being is if that future connection with the east-west connector evolves and it really begins to facilitate access, it's a little bit more orderly from the CMS elementary school, it seems in our mind that that's perhaps where a signal would go. Now, as you get into some of the discussion that we'll have with the draft report, obviously there's a lot of things happening with Gilead Road, and there's plans that are, being discussed. I know NCDOT with their current plan, they have a roundabout, at least in their thinking there at Sherwood. So a lot of this is contingent upon advancing discussions with NCDOT. But in terms of the plan expression that we have right now, it seems the most appropriate location would be that intersection, again, to create the ability for easy north-south connections across Gilead Road, to have a more traditional intersection that increases safety and mobility in this part of the town. The next one, intersection of Watkins Street and Greenway Street. Loud and clear, we heard that the roundabout is not feasible, given some the constraints that are placed upon that North State project, that there will be no right-hand turns out of Watkins Street, that extension of Watkins Street onto Greenway. So we eliminated that, and we'll certainly, follow that, plan that's in place right now. Number five, the 100 Ransom Street. One of the comments we heard was that perhaps the building height or the residential D building type was perhaps too high for the surrounding neighborhood context. So we dropped that from a 2 to 3 story to a 1 to 2 story. We still think it's appropriate perhaps to have some smaller attached houses that might frame up that little park that we have in that area there. But certainly the scale of that needs to be in concert with the existing development around it. Number 6, the blocks immediately north of Town Hall. We changed that to a mixed-use B residential building type. And the reason for that was, given, some of the possibilities for smaller shop, incremental activity on the ground floor of these blocks, particularly near that Town Hall block and adjacent to Veterans Park, we felt it appropriate to allow for some smaller, again, incremental shops on those blocks. And we're not saying that all those blocks would have that. It's just another opportunity for that to occur on those blocks. Obviously, a lot of this is going to be market-driven, and it'll be based upon things as they evolve over time there. Now, the other thing you see in the bottom right, and we failed to do this on some of the, obviously, all the other plans up until this point, is to create this watermark stamp. And we'll stamp all the drawings as a general note saying, hey, these are conceptual in nature, and they're depicting potential planning concepts that could happen in the future. So again, this will be subject to change, and it's going to be based upon, jurisdictional realities, property ownership realities, funding, and then other market demands. So we just want to be clear that, this is not a fixed plan by any means. There's a lot of flexibility built into this, and we just want to make it clear that that is indeed the case and the intent with this plan. So again, we updated the same thing with the conceptual vision plan, just so you can see the same key revisions in those locations. And as you look through, just to kind of, it should be pretty self-evident, the final master plan outline. If you have that in front of you, we've highlighted a lot of the areas that we've modified or refined. And at this point, I'll open it up to any questions relative to these 3 elements here. I will say, I want to reiterate, with the master plan, the conceptual vision plan, these are all underpinned by the organizing principles. And I'm not going to go through those again, but we went through those at length during the last meeting. We had a whole list of elements in terms of how each layer, how each organizing principle is woven into the master plan. And we hope we captured everything. You'll see in those notes in the current update where we folded in some of the comments we received during the meeting and, of course, after the meeting. Again, I want you to feel confident that we have captured the dialogue and the organizing principles. And as you recall, it's a culmination of the surveys we've gone through during public forums, our discussions together this evening, and also with staff as well. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Then the next item is lost the agenda. So does that complete 8? Does anybody have any questions at this point? All right.
We move to the discussion.
Okay.
Questions not there.
The Arts and Cultural Center, American Legion has expressed that they're not interested in selling.
That's understood. I saw some email correspondence in that regard. That is an option. It's for consideration if they're not interested in moving.
I think it shouldn't be, I don't think it should be included on this plan. That's my opinion,
Okay.
for whatever it's worth.
But it has been talked about being sold or leased.
You're talking about American Legion, or are you talking about Arts and Cultural?
These plans showed the Arts and Cultural moving over there.
We had, if I can clarify, we had 3 locations for the arts and cultural.
I mean, I would love it to be over there in
Sure,
Anchorage.
no, I understand, that's a reality. But we had 3 options. One would be to renovate it in place, because we understand also that there's some elements relative to the use continuation of that property being, a civic use, or else it reverts back to the county. So that's a key consideration there. Another consideration was if this building here becomes available based upon the new facility next door, could this have that function? And then the third option was, as you mentioned, the American Legion building, if that would be something that they would want to co-locate with. So to your point, that might be one that has, a very low possibility, low feasibility, and we could certainly address that in the narrative.
If I may add just one thing about it, because I read all the emails that
okay.
came through about that, and one observation I would have, one thing is good to know that people are outside of our group, looking at these things and considering things. But one thing I will say to truly emphasize what a master plan is, and then one iteration coming through a vision plan, that they are just possibilities for the future. This is not a development plan. It's certainly not a condemnation plan. It's not something coming from government that says, you shall have this, so there's a need to feel in any way threatened. But having people express their opinions like this is good. But I will say, as my 69 years will tell me, that the actual things that unfold and develop, even with organizations, are always subject to change. People's opinions change, membership changes, people see things. But the point is when governments put out plans, they're saying, here are possibilities, a lot of citizens have considered, let's see how things unfold over time. So it's good people respond that way, but I would say that in terms of this is true for any property on this plan, this is the best that all of us could do, particularly planners, and what actually unfolds, because it involves individual property owners and organizations and groups, just fosters a dialogue and people will continue to talk about it. That's all it means.
I agree with all that. However, whatever plan gets put on the shelf, a developer can come in and say, I want to do this. And it's planning's job to say, well, in 2022, this plan was presented to the town board and they agreed with it. And things that we look at now and say are maybe, a vision that could be, then all of a sudden they're a reality when 75% of the citizens don't want it. And that's really dangerous to me. That's why I have concerns about displacing Hunter Village and displacing White Hill, because those are vulnerable populations. And to take away something that's consistent in their lives is a serious consideration. And we know that Nate owns all the property east of it. And so in my mind, it's a danger that those people are going to be displaced because there's this thing on the shelf. So that's where my headspace has been coming from since I've been looking at this for 24 hours.
And I can hear that, and I appreciate your opinion. But obviously, to get from that, it's not getting from A to B to that outcome, it's from A to Z. And this is an expression of what could happen, but there are many things, obviously, picking any property on this plan to get to a change. One would, I think, confident in, I hope most citizens do, that there are many checks and balances and many decision steps along the way before anything happens. Merely taking this off the shelf, you're a developer, and using it as a final voice. Jack, that's why Jack's here, that's why city council sits, and that's why planning board sit, and other members of the staff along the way. But I hear you, it is a concern. I understand why citizens would have that reaction, but.
Because we've seen it happen.
So if I could offer a suggestion, so we will be preparing kind of an introductory to this, and I think it's going to be important for us to say that it is up to the private property individuals to determine if they are willing partners to this. And so we really, and it kind of gets back to the disclaimer statement as well, that this is conceptual. So I just as a hypothetical, let's just say the American Legion, just say the plan shows a arts and cultural center. So what would have to happen is that they would have to, whoever wants to do whatever that use is going to have to approach the property owner to say, I would like to do this. And it might be zoned that way already, or they might need rezoning. If it needed rezoning, absolutely, we go to these long-range plans, and we will say, you know, that's not really consistent with what the long-range plan had viewed. So we absolutely do utilize these long-range plans. The town board is in no way, shape, or form held to make sure everybody complies with the long-range plans, because things change. Like when this gets adopted 3 or 4 years from now, things might have changed to where, you know, you have to go different. So again, I think my thinking is that we, in the introduction, need to state that the decisions that are made for individual properties are up to the individual property owners to do, whether they want to develop it, leave it like it is, or sell it for development. It is their choice. I don't know if that raises your comfort level any, but I do, hearing your comment, I think it's going to be real important we emphasize that at the introduction, and so that'd be my comment.
I have a question.
Other questions?
Yeah, Gilead Road. I know at one point you guys mentioned you had a contact with the NCDOT, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to speak with anyone about Gilead Road and how to keep the state from widening, you know, making it 6 lanes, or what the town would have to do. I had emailed Jack about this, but this was just yesterday. Do we know any more about what the town would actually have to do in order to take the Gilead from the state and show that we weren't harming their other roads?
We have not, from our standpoint, our team has not had a follow-up discussion with NCDOT. We had an initial discussion to share the initial traffic analysis that we did. We learned at that time, you know, what their initial plans were for Gilead Road. But in terms of having a follow-up with them, that is something that we have not engaged with. Now, I know that the town has reached out to your MPO in terms of modeling some things in this area here to get an understanding of what might be possible. And I think the intent is, once that information is modeled, then that'd be an appropriate time to regroup with NCDOT and say, hey, this is what we found. You know, how does this begin to impact, or how is this a variable in terms of how you're thinking about Gilead Road? And is there an opportunity to perhaps, you know, course correct some of the things that they're doing, or have a broader or a deeper conversation about what it might mean if the town takes it over? But I think some of the information is still in the works through your MPO, and I imagine that will be in the next couple of months or so. That'll be.
Well, that discussion's going on, but we just went with the broad, I mean, the broad question that Elaine was asking was, you know, what's the steps to take over? I mean, so DOT, when we had our initial meeting with them, they were the ones who said, well, another option is the town take over. So that was, but they did not explain the steps how to do that, but they just said that's an option. So Heather, the transportation planner, has reached out. Did you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, I've reached out to NCDOT to find out what the specific steps are. I have not heard back from them. And that's just one option, is taking back control. The other, we've looked into a traffic analysis to see what the effects of an east-west connector would do to relieve traffic on Gilead and 115, to see if that could help. But it takes time, and we have time. So the Gilead project isn't scheduled for right-of-way until 2028. NCDOT has not gotten back to me with, you know, a timeline of or even the detailed steps, but we're working with them.
It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, they're looking at it not only just in this sort of micro area, they're looking at it more in a regional context.
Yes, we've
So
asked
I know
for
a lot of the
both.
conversation is, well, hey, what is the effect of Stumptown? What is the effect of some of these other roadway networks? That's something that they're going to factor in as they
Yeah,
look.
and
Exactly.
possibly like Beerhoff even. Beerhoff. Yeah.
And exactly, if I can amplify, that is really one of the ways, the big outcome of all this process is finally getting them to not look at it myopically, but to have it be within the context of the area surrounding this, because that's the way roads work. That's the way
Yeah.
we drive cars.
We've asked for a narrow scope study of like the traffic on Gilead. Where is it coming from? Is it local, or how far is it coming from? We've asked for a broader analysis between kind of Stumptown and Mount Holly, Huntersville. And depending on what that results in, we can also then take it to a more sub-regional scale. And we can keep you informed of those steps as soon as we get answers from
Yeah.
NCDOT.
Thank you. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I can't help but note, under summary of organization principles, what we're calling this, that the first thing you see under mobility, key recommendations, number one, Gilead Road is not widened and is designed as a multimodal street and includes on-street parking. So forgive me, unless math at West Mecklenburg changes. Not widened and on-street parking means it's narrower as far as through traffic, which personally suits me fine. Then CATS buses can't go down through there at 60 miles an hour, and yes, I follow them doing that. But I think it's quite ironical that we discuss this, and I agree with what y'all are saying in principle, but the first thing we see is not widen, and I agree with that, but then you put on-street parking, I agree with that, but that means it's not even gonna carry what it's carrying now. But if the truth be known, it ain't Gilead Road that's the problem, it's this intersection. And of course, DOT hadn't come and fixed this light in 4 months since that road was reopened between here and the folks' businesses across the street. So I really don't know that I trust them if they can't come fix lights to fix roads anyway.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda, Lee, do you have a motion?
Are we doing discussion, you think?
Discussion, anything? I thought we were discussing it.
Questions? Okay.
Any
Any other discussion on matters at hand? Then I would like to make a motion.
please do.
I make a motion that this committee accept the following documents as our final plan documents. The summary of organizing principles for each mobility, nature, gathering, living, civic, and soul, as well as the conceptual vision plan summary for all 4 quadrants. Also, the text document titled Final Master Plan Outline December 15th, 2022, with the revisions noted and highlighted.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? No discussion.
I would just like to add another disclaimer, I guess. It's the one that Larry, I guess, put up, but it's the views expressed disclaimer that the graphics on here, you know, not all of us agree with 100%, but that is an expression of a plan, and it could be anything. And I think the graphics is all the organizing principles and all the concepts for each of the quadrants taken to their very maximum interpretation. And so the focus, I think, is the text part of this and what's in the proposed motion here is the foundation, and the interpretation, the graphic part, is not what we're exactly approving here. It is an expression of what could be, but doesn't necessarily what has to be. And once these things get turned into actual projects, we'll have another opportunity to express our views and accept or deny. Thank you.
Again, any questions, comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. I believe the motion carried unanimously. Am I wrong? Did anybody vote against it? Then the unanimous vote of those attending the meeting, let record show that. Thank you for the motion, please. The next step, type seminar.
So, at this point, we're looking to have between the steering committee, planning board, and top board, we are shooting for a town board work session January 19th. Is that a Tuesday?
So was that changed from the 12th,
It's a
John?
Thursday, John. I can't do it.
The 19th is a Thursday.
Yes, town board work session January 17th.
17th, not 19th.
All right, 17th.
Tuesday.
And then, so that would be the official handoff of the documents that goes to town board, planning board, committee to. You're doing that at your church? Yeah, that'll be about a 45, 50-minute town board special meeting.
We had trouble.
It then will go on January 24th to the planning board for them to decide how they want to proceed on to make a recommendation on that. The planning board will need to make a recommendation. We would expect that they would do some review and possibly vote on it in February, which means in March it will go to the town board. The town board would,
Thank you, yeah. I think that the town board, at this point in time, we are looking at possibly having a public hearing, a joint public hearing, planning board, town board, on February the 6th. So that's kind of a tentative. So kind of summarize, January 17th is the joint meeting with the town board. That'll be at 5 p.m. here. Go to the planning board on January 24th to have discussion and map out the approval process. And then February the 6th, a public hearing, and that's going to be the point where the citizens come and speak. And it could be that there's enough information, enough concern that they might have multiple public hearings, but that's tentatively what's set up. And possible planning board vote in February and go to the town board for consideration in March. And I'm pretty certain the town board is not going to be approving it the first time they see it. It could take a month or two for them to make sure that they're comfortable with everything. So that's tentatively what we've got. So next thing up will be January 17th, 5 p.m. here, official handoff. And I'm probably many thank yous for, for 15 meetings of coming, so, yes.
So it will be a pre-meeting.
Yes, a pre-meeting.
Pre-meeting
That's
with the
correct.
town board at 5 o'clock, not 6 o'clock.
Not at 6 o'clock, right? It'll be.
Is there
Any questions?
anything we need to do between now and then? Are we done?
No, so as the documents are cleaned up and we do the introduction, we'll get that to you. That'll be probably the first or second week of January, so you'll see kind of a more, kind of in a planned format. But there's nothing you need to do there. Again, there will be a public hearing, so, you know, public comments are welcomed. Anybody at any point in time can offer comments on the plan as well, so particularly at the public comment section. But no, you have more than done your job, and now it's for the consultants and staff to get it in the format that we need for the town board and planning board to consider.
So this is obviously, if the town passes the conceptual plan, there's nothing binding that it does when it passes that, correct? There's no zoning or ordinance changes in that process.
So that's a good comment. So once the board is comfortable with the plan, so this plan in the draft outline says there's many things that ought to happen. You know, you need your sidewalk plan. Okay. Once the board adopts that, says, yes, we agree with that, then we're putting in money in the budget to say, we need to hire the consultant to do and that be 1 year, and then the second year will be, okay, now we need, you know, X money to do those improvements. So to answer your question, it's going to be there are multiple actions that will happen once this is done. It is not a mandate, but that's why we want the board to feel comfortable, that they're comfortable with everything it says we're supposed to be doing. They're willing for us to apply staff time and more importantly, financial money to make those things happen. Does that answer your question, Sean?
Yeah, so it puts it in motion, basically.
It is, absolutely. And yes.
To define a little more, does anything you see on this plan merit a zoning change outside of somebody coming to conditional zoning something on a project basis?
No, not now. There was the iteration before, this map that we have, number 6, that area number 6, it shows 3 to 4 stories. Initially, that was apartments at 3 to 4 stories.
Right.
And we only allow 3-story apartments. So that would have had a text change. Now that it's shown as mixed use, mixed-use buildings can go up to 4 stories. So that won't need a text change. But I suspect we will be doing text changes. Maybe it's about sidewalk widths.
Sure.
Yeah, so yes, there will be some text changes that will occur.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say, at least on behalf of myself, and I would like to thank most of the committee members, thank you to Terry Chook and his company, thank you to Jack Semino and the planning department, thank you to Jackie and the town administrative staff, thank you for Leah and Sarah for putting up with each other for a year and a half and indulging the rest of us. And some of us are very thankful that we're going to get out of here before 8 o'clock tonight, one way or the other. So I'm just going to say thank you and Merry Christmas.
I thank everybody.
I'll second that.
County, every guy, staff, everybody. Thank you all for attending and putting up with each other. And I think that we have grown and learned different people, and we can work on a better Huntersville, or a Huntersville that we all can enjoy. It's the time.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you,
Any
thank you,
discussion?
thank you for
All
your
in favor of the
time.
motion, say aye.
I missed it by 5
Opposed,
minutes.
none. Motion carries. Thank you.